To Fabulous Friday Captive Audience. How are you doing, Kevin? Nice to have you with me.
It's good to be here. I can't believe it's September 1st. It's just, yeah, the summer flew, didn't it?
Yes, it has, and frankly, this whole year has flown by. And so, yeah, we're entering the Burr months, not just Burr like in cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is September 1st, and it's beautiful weather and cooling off. But it's going to be nice this weekend. Do you have special plans this?
Not particularly, just kind of want to enjoy that breather that you get before you head right into the fall, to the home stretch, and you know, school returning and everything. Got my son off at college now. Was just watching his soccer match. It's all the way over in Pittsburgh, but um, it was interesting to watch him, but then know that that's like 2,000 miles away. So still adjusting to that.
Yeah, but you know what? It's nice that you can watch him. You
I
know,
know.
my mom is one of her great granddaughters. We watch her play sports through the sports program, and she's just entering high school, and she played basketball. And so the basketball games are televised through the school districts
Oh,
and
nice.
whatnot. And that's been cool being able to do. And so, and able to then chat with her mom, while the game's going on, and hey, tell her that we're here watching and stuff like that. So it's wonderful through technology that we are able to see them and still stay connected, right? Otherwise,
Absolutely.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
it's been great. You're right, because I could text with other people in the family who are watching the match and say, "Oh, that was a pretty good little pass that my son made there." And it's like it's weird. I don't think there's any experience I can quite compare it to. You know.
yeah.
Speaking of that, by the way, of schools and back to school, there's this really great story that you found and posted about a middle schooler in Colorado, and I just love this story, and I just had to also add my 2 cents on it because this is in Colorado Springs. A young man named Jaden, who's 12 years old. They're describing him as the new face of liberty in America because he had a Gadsden flag, that "Do Not Tread on Me" yellow flag, and a lot of people have distorted what that flag means. But what's interesting is, yeah, were you checking to
I
see
was
if you had
looking to
one
see
of them
if I
behind
had one hanging up, but I don't. Otherwise, I was going to like move my camera, right?
you? I've got one of them myself, but I don't have it hanging up right now.
I had to
And
take it off the wall because I sold it,
oh,
So,
right.
yeah.
Well, it might be even more valuable now because this young man had a patch of this flag on his backpack, and he went to school, and then the school administrator said, You can't have that. That's a symbol of racism and slavery." And the boy, who actually happened to know some history, unlike the school administrator, said, "No, it's not. It has nothing to do with it." And but they yanked him into the principal's office and brought his mother in there. And then the school administrator's like, "You don't, you can't have that. You don't know. We can't have other people upset because they see it." And they just stood their ground and said, "This has nothing to do with slavery. We can prove it. It is the American Revolution." And they were talking about the British. And it was very simple. It had no connection to slavery. But the school director kicked him out, said he had to go outside. And there's this great picture of him in this article that shows him standing outside with a Gadsden flag in the parking lot. And at one point, also, he wanders over. By the way, the mother surreptitiously recorded this meeting with the school
It's
administrator.
a good thing she did too.
I know, because they would just claim that it never happened,
Yeah.
or "I
Yeah.
didn't say that," and it's sadly nowadays the truth is always worse than the imagination on this stuff. And but he's 12 years old, middle school, and he refused to remove it from his backpack. So they sent him out into the parking lot, and he walks over and they take a picture in front of this teacher's car that has like every single leftist trope slogan on it,
Yep.
like protect trans kids and all this stuff, um, all over the car. And apparently, these rules only apply to conservatives and kids in this case. So they stood their ground. And what was great is the state came after them, and so did the public. The public was really upset about it and forced them to reverse the decision. And lo and behold, he's back in. What I haven't seen yet or heard, and maybe this did happen, but I haven't, is that there's no apology from the administrator for getting history wrong.
Right.
And trying to intimidate a 12-year-old boy, but he stood his ground. So he's our Liberty Hero of the Week, because
You know what
this is
else?
not easy for a 12-year-old to do, even for a
No,
mom
no.
who just usually just wants to keep their kids out of the principal's office, right? But
Right. Yeah, and I'll tell you that was snowflake syndrome that happened with that teacher that
oh, did you
wanted.
freeze up there?
Oh, if I did, I don't know. I guess maybe I did. Can you hear me? I hope so. But I think that is snowflake syndrome that happened with that teacher
Yeah,
there.
I can hear you. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. And also, if you're a teacher, before you start administering discipline, get your information right. If this is about history, get history right. And if you get history wrong, apologize for getting
Yeah.
history wrong, because if there's anybody who should get history right, it's the teachers teaching the kids. Look, the kids are going to get history wrong. They don't know it yet.
Yeah.
But teachers and administrators, they are obligated to go the extra mile to make sure that they know what they're talking about. So I don't know, made me feel good to see this. Some of the other news today didn't make me feel as good, but I think there's a really funny comment from Trump that I felt like we had to share here. President Trump, in reaction to this, these 5,400 pseudonym emails that they found in the National Archive that haven't been released yet fully, but they are there. And this is communications between Vice President, then Vice President Biden, and people within the bureaucracy, and with his son, and with the law firm that Devon Archer worked at. There's over 1,000 just with that law firm. And the purpose of these pseudonyms is the same thing that like organized crime does, where they don't want to get caught. They use code names and stuff like that. And Trump said Biden's behavior warrants an impeachment inquiry because he's got more aliases than Al Capone. And
Yeah.
anybody who's seen the Untouchables movie knows that that's how they got the bookkeeper, right? The bookkeeper,
Yep.
they found the book and they got the bookkeeper before they could kill him, and he could tell them which references in there were referring to Al Capone, who up to that point had managed to avoid appearing to have any income and therefore no federal income tax liability. And they got him on income tax evasion, not
Yep.
blowing up little kids or intimidating people or running a mafia operation. They got him because actually he was making like tens of millions of dollars and not reporting it as income like everyone else had to. So, but they used these pseudonyms, and I think that momentum is building. Biden is in big trouble. All of the stuff that these guys are doing to try and slow down the ability to get information, such as the response to Judicial Watch, who filed the lawsuit to get these pseudonym emails, as well as the request from Congress, they were told that the only way you could get them is if President Biden or President Obama gives you permission to get the emails. It's like, that's not going to fly.
No.
We're getting to the truth. We're not going to stop. The Justice Department has told Jim Jordan they are not going to honor a bunch of his subpoenas for information either with regard to Hunter Biden. So this is going to impeachment because an impeachment inquiry cannot be stopped by this bureaucratic garbage that's going on. You have to turn it over. It's very serious, and then anybody who tries to stand in your way, or their boss, if that person is not an impeachable political appointee, that person gets impeached, like Merrick Garland or anyone else. So I think President Trump was right on this. He hit it right on the head. And I think things are going to start happening here. And I think it's going to get really bad for Joe Biden very fast. And it couldn't happen to a more corrupt person deserving it.
Well, I'll tell you, I hope so. I hope so. You know, I am, and I believe there's a lot of people that feel like me. I'm sick and tired of the two-tier justice system, and there is a lot of evidence about the corruption of what of the Biden family corruption, and yet nothing is happening. You know, so then we have the Republicans playing. I'm, you know, like I read something today that Speaker McCarthy is saying could be, well, you know, do we want to do that? Do we want to move ahead with that? You know, because we also have to then, when you do impeach him, one, it's not going to go to the, is it going to backfire? Politically, is that going to backfire? Well,
Right.
and the Senate is not going to take it up. But the thing is, people in America are sick and tired of the corruption and nothing happening. Nobody's gotten matching bracelets on. They're trying to put that on Trump, but yet he's the guy who's actually fighting for our nation and fighting for us, and wanting the truth out there and wanting to help the American people to really see the truth. But of course, the mainstream media, you know, the lion media doesn't want any of that out. It's just abominable what is going on in our nation today when we have, I saw somebody said, you know, it's the geriatric ward in our Congress, you know, when we,
Yeah.
it's so sad to see in our nation. I mean, it's worse than a banana republic, quite frankly, because we do have to, we should be following the Constitution and the rule of law to go through the processes correctly and whatnot, and not weaponizing our justice system.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine that likes to remind me that all change, all progress starts with the truth. And without the truth, not only about 2020, and the fact that I think we're getting very close to being able to demonstrate that the deception that took place around Joe Biden and Hunter's laptop was sufficient to and therefore
Yeah.
alter the outcome and steal the 2020 election. So
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, don't talk about stolen elections." Well, they're unrepentant. They're still trying to steal current and future elections, and they're trying to use the same methods. They're emboldened by
Yes, they
what they
are.
got away with, and we cannot allow that. Now, there's one other piece of news which emerged, which really caught my attention too, in conjunction with this, because as you said, you know, we're getting sick and tired of the two-tier justice system, and frankly, if you don't have a justice system where everybody is equal, then you don't have a country based on equality anymore. And frankly, you don't have a justice system. It's an injustice system. But this caught my attention as well, which is Michigan police have the Michigan police memos raised a concern about a possible nationwide voter registration fraud scheme. Local Michigan police and the state's attorney general discovered a high ratio of fraudulent voter registration applications, and they are investigating election fraud by forgery, and they referred the matter to the FBI, which gives me, unfortunately, less confidence that they'll get to the bottom of it. But then again, we just have to keep pushing these things out in front of people.
Yes.
Because the problem is these crimes, it's almost like when you see hundreds of people doing one of these flash mob things where they go in and they steal a bunch of stuff from like a department store, and then they run out. Well, it takes months actually, and get enough evidence of who it was, and then file charges and prosecute them. Long after all the goods are gone and the goods are sold. When it comes to elections, unfortunately, the result is that someone else who probably may not have deserved to win the election did so, because it takes years, especially when people are playing games, to slow it down and to prevent anybody from getting to the truth. But we just have to keep pushing forward. So this is what's happened in Michigan. This FOIA request starting to rain. They said that an organization turned in some thousands of voter registrations throughout the fall of 2020, and this is what they found. Right, so we can't even assume they found all of the stuff that could have happened across the country. They estimated on the high end that this could be cumulatively 8 to 10,000 fraudulent voter registrations. Some within those batches are found to be suspicious or fraudulent, they said. There were legitimate registrations mixed in with it, which is a great.
Yeah. Well, I think Kevin's froze up because he's not moving on my end, and I'm moving on my end. So I think Kevin's froze up. And that story in the Michigan police, I read that. And what's interesting is the FBI has not responded to them. And it's atrocious, but they were able to. Yeah, maybe we're saying too much. No kidding, Lori. So there's you froze up, Kevin. I didn't freeze up. So and Lori has a good point. Maybe we're saying too much. That got you frozen up. But well, he okay.
Nope, I'm back. I switched to another internet connection. Let's hope that works better. Sorry about that, folks.
Hey, you know what? That's okay. Stuff happens, especially when you're live. But
yeah, and when you're saying stuff they don't want you to say, huh?
Exactly. So as I was saying while you were frozen was that in Michigan they were able to catch the fraud and not allow those voter registrations into their system. But pointing out what else happened nationwide, what other places, and the FBI is silent on this, and the FBI hasn't gotten back to Michigan. In reading this article, I was reading that right before we went on to where's the follow-up with that, and what has the FBI done with that information?
Yeah, and actually, within the information that they released, it said the Muskegon Police Department began investigating a company called GBI Strategies after the city clerk's office reported the suspected voter fraud. That was dated October 16th, 2020, according to a Freedom of Information request. So we're not talking about stuff that has been made overtly public for everyone to find and to see. And it had to be sought after, which you'd think this would be of great public interest. The police interviewed the woman who dropped off the registration. They're calling her suspect number one. And she explained that she received $1,150 a week, hotel services, and a rental vehicle to do her work.
Yeah.
She also was tasked with finding unregistered voters and providing them with a form so they can get registered and obtain their ballot. Suspect one initially stated that her canvassers earn money for each person that completes the form. She later told us they are paid $9.25 an hour with extra money for working weekends. The suspect said in the report that she worked in Muskegon, Detroit, Ypsilanti, Southfield, Flint, and Lansing area, so all over the state. As they uncovered this, it looks like this is not only more widespread, but these companies, someone paid them. This
Definitely. And
yes.
More dots have to be connected. And I would bet you that True the Vote has some information on this.
This is where it's heading. And it may actually take all the way to sometime next year to start getting to the bottom of this, but they can't go around anymore and say, there's nothing to see here.
Right.
We're not going to look into it because, and there is Open Secrets, a nonpartisan research group that tracks money in U.S. politics and provides data. And they show that GBI has been paid millions of dollars in the 2020 election cycle by Democrat and far left groups. The group,
Not surprising.
It's not surprising, and it includes the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, which, as you recall, there was a very close Senate race in Michigan, the same in 2020, at the same time that there was a presidential race that was, as we know, very close too. And DNC Services Corp, the Biden for President campaign, paid them $450,000. So they have to rat all these people out. They have to find out who knew what and how this is being executed, because it'll just happen again. It'll just happen again if they don't take action.
Well, it will, and I don't have any idea what these NGOs have really been a machine. You got to give the Democrats credit for this. I'll just call it a machine.
Yeah.
It
No,
better.
it is definitely a machine, and it's a machine. It's perhaps one of the most well-oiled machines ever. But one of the problems is that the corruption goes deeper into nearly every district in the country in Congress. And what we're seeing now is that there's something unfolding here in the home of what I like to call corruption in a cardigan. It's like nice people that are very corrupt that never get held to account in our state in Oregon. And we know that, of course, there was a Secretary of State who is under federal investigation now and had to resign, decided she had to resign, Shamia Fagan. And of course, she oversees, yes, our election system, or did oversee it, as well as the audit function of the state government. But it turns out that this company that was paying Shamia Fagan to lobby for them, and also the same company that was handing bags of cash to Democrat office holders. I don't know I think maybe Sonny had a little, just gonna try to rejoin here. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, you're back.
That was my turn.
That's okay. We're each taking a turn. Hey, they're jamming us. They don't want this stuff out, so we're just going to keep going.
Right.
But this is now starting to mire someone else in all of this. A person who, this is like only one of her scandals, is Congresswoman Val Hoyle. She's the former director of the Bureau of Labor and Industry, which is an elected position. And from that position, she ran in the 4th Congressional District, which is in Southwest Oregon. Starts at about Eugene area, approximately Lane County, and goes down to the southern part of the state and to the coast. And in that district, which was a targeted district last time, she won, but she also was one of the people that took a big chunk of money from this LaMotta, suspected of being not only dirty money, but then there's the real story with her. In June of 2021, Val Hoyle, as the head of the Bureau of Labor and Industry, that LaMotta bunch gave her $20,000 in campaign cash, which is a sizable contribution from any individual. And she was lobbying in July the Oregon State Apprenticeship and Training Council to give LaMotta, which formed a nonprofit that was less than 2 weeks old, $554,000 in a grant.
I know.
They create this nonprofit out of thin air. It's a corrupt organization that creates it. They have no track record or history, and all of a sudden,
let's give them $500,000.
That's right. So they gave her $20,000. She gets them $500,000. And that was after the council that was in charge of deciding this Oregon State Apprenticeship and Training Council, pushed back on the idea of giving these guys any money.
Yeah.
And she pushed it through. She actually met with the founders of LaModa in March of 2021 at a fancy high-rise restaurant in Portland about this grant. And of course, Oregon ethics laws then and now prohibit those lobbying public officials from gifting them anything over $50. I've been to the Portland City Grill. It is hard to find any configuration of a meal other than maybe eating, a starter of olives or something that you're going to end up coming out of there under $50. It's just not conceivable. But they're not sure if she paid for her dinner or not. We may never get to the bottom of that. Here's what's fascinating about it, as this is happening at the same time that Val Hoyle has was the subject, the main subject in a court case, a lawsuit that took place in Multnomah County Circuit Court. It was a former employee who faced a racial harassment, and the court found in favor of the person who faced the racial harassment. Interestingly enough, the person that faced the racial harassment was the person Val Hoyle put in charge of combating racial harassment and discrimination in our labor system. And she was the head of the Bureau of Labor and Industry. So she's
You can't make this stuff up, Kevin.
I know. But here's the thing: Val Hoyle's not going to have to pay any of this settlement. She, in fact, took credit for doing something about this before she ran for Congress and touted her great record at the Bureau of Labor and Industry. But now she's left the Bureau of Labor and Industry, and therefore us, the taxpayers, with a $1.7 million bill to pay in this settlement. And it keeps getting worse because
yes, it does.
She is starting to face an avalanche of issues. She's stonewalling on Freedom of Information requests relating to the LaModa scandal, claiming she didn't see. She didn't
For
see
8 months, she's stonewalling.
Yeah, apparently 8 months she can't see something, and but
2 requests in 8 months.
And it's she was doing business on her private phone, so therefore we are entitled to the information from her private phone when she conducted official state business on her personal device. And it could reveal a lot more about her collusion with the LaModa donors. I don't know if it can turn into something criminal, but it's certainly not going to be good for her congressional reelection campaign. And at the same time, now the NRCC has really got her in the sights, and it's great because they're starting to put out videos and stories. And in this one video, it shows her claiming that President Trump took documents and wouldn't cooperate with the agencies that were trying to get them back. Meanwhile, she spends 8 months making sure that a legitimate public information request cannot be satisfied in a potentially criminal probe.
And what she said was a lie, because Trump he had said, not a problem. I mean, when the records office came and looked at where he had his stuff that he could have because he was president, they said, well, just put another lock on it. He says, do you want it? Here, what is it you want here? No, just keep it there. Put another lock on the door. So she's just spreading lies.
She's just spreading lies. And by the way, Trump is working with an entity that apparently wants to make sure no one can get Joe Biden's emails from 2015, 16, 17. So
I want to see Obama's emails.
Yes, exactly. So there's a lot of distrust, but there's also people that are hypocrites. And Val Hoyle wins the Hypocrite Award for this week.
Oh, yeah.
And I recommend everybody, by the way, start following the NRCC site that is starting to put out almost daily stories about her, because she's a news machine. She's actually able to produce a continuous stream of bad stories about herself. she's had a pretty rough couple of weeks. And it needs to get rougher, because I think when we talk about this two-tier justice system, this is part of it too, isn't it?
It
Somebody that
is.
just gets away with this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is a two-tier justice system. And so maybe she thinks because she's now a congressman, or congresswoman. I still that, I'm like, for
I do
me, that's
too.
like gender neutral. But
I'm going
anyway,
to celebrate her actual gender. Yes.
yeah,
I'm
right.
celebrating women. So there you go.
Yeah, but it's maybe she thinks she's untouchable now in the state of Oregon because she's a congresswoman, and you know what? She's not. She needs to turn the records over. 8 months is like way too long, and it's shameful that here she was the head of Bureau of Labor and Industries, and yet they get sued and lose on something that she was in charge of. It'd be great to get her unelected.
Great to get her unelected. Great to make her unelectable, actually,
Yes,
by staying
yes.
on this. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
here's to the NRCC for jumping on this, because this is the stuff we really expect from some of these national entities that are there to expand the House Republican majority, and to go and look for these opportunities. And I think Val Hoyle has become a real liability, and it could get a lot worse. And we've got to be ready to jump on these, because that's what the other side does, right?
Oh, for
Sometimes
sure.
they create
Absolutely.
fake scandals, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we do. We do have to be ready to jump on that and bring attention to it for sure.
Well, that's what we just did, Sonny, and we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, we will.
So there's been some interesting developments here back in the Oregon home front, because there's, we pay attention to the national news, and we just talked about Val Hoyle, but it turns out that Oregon is experiencing like record revenues, tax revenues, and there's a number of explanations for it, but sometimes good news is not such good news. And while, even though this headline says Oregon political leaders are delighted by state's sunny revenue forecast, predicting how much money will be coming in and therefore what they can go and spend, and we know they'll spend it if they can.
Oh, yes.
The bad news is that they're going to go spend it on a bunch of things that have turned out to be a complete waste. And on top of that, they may steal our kicker. And so we'll get to the kicker in a second, but they say that the general fund resources that are going to be coming in to Oregon, so this is the part that just relies on Oregon taxes, not transfers from the federal government and stuff
Right.
like there is for, Medicare and all that. But the state is seeing $437 million more coming in, which is a lot of money, although I totally believe they'll be able to spend it. But now this is where the debate is coming, which Republicans are saying, well, if this is an opportunity to solve problems and spend money, how about, because Tina Kotek says we should just spend it supporting Oregon's families and the state's long-term economic growth. No idea what that really means. Vicky Breeze Iverson, the leader of the House minority Republicans, said, how about if we dedicate that to combating crime and the flood of fentanyl into our state? And I think she's got a point, because didn't they say that was their top priority back in 2022? You'd think that the
Yes,
spending
and with the failed passing of Measure 110, it's atrocious what's happening to our state. And yet, as I think about the amount of money that is coming into Oregon, I can really only think about like the gross receipts tax that is hurting businesses in our state. And you think, well, that's okay. Let's just spend it on this. No, you know what? We need to get our spending under control. And it would be good to dial back some of the tax dollars that are coming in, like gross receipts tax.
Yeah.
That's that's why businesses are leaving Oregon. That's why people are leaving Oregon, not just Portland.
Do you think that's what Tina Kotek was talking about when she talked about the state's long-term economic growth? I fear that perhaps she was not talking about the gross receipts tax. She was probably talking about spending $800 gazillion on trying to create government housing or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Pat says provide counseling and job training and give people some hope. Well, unfortunately, the Democrats do not want to do that. That's what the Republicans would like to do, Pat. But the Democrats are all about the destruction of your town, the destruction of our state, and the destruction of our nation. Unfortunately, that's the bottom line.
If you look at the policies they support, then yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
exactly right. Exactly right. That's the policies. They align their money with the policies, right?
Yeah. Exactly right there, Pat. They want government dependency, 100%, cradle to grave. And so, yes, they'll spend it. They'll keep taxing us and taxing us and taxing us and just finding more things to spend it on, even though they have failed drug policies, they have failed housing policies, they have failed growth policies. There's nothing good the Democrats are doing.
So Dan Rayfield, the House Speaker, says that it means that Oregon can continue plowing money into homelessness, access to mental health, healthcare, community safety, and education. How come all those things are getting worse and they're spending gobs of money now? I mean, just got to ask that question. Now, Rob Wagner, Senate president, says that this is going to, once again, this vague stuff about sustaining critical funding for services that directly impact the lives of Oregon families. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Tim Knopp came back and said, I think something similar to what you were just talking about. Bold investments in infrastructure like roads, sewer systems, and water, stuff that government actually pays for, and it's in bad shape, as we know.
Yeah, you know what? And you need to help cities that have aging infrastructure. That's really the government's job. Let's define what is the government's job. You know, we're all paying taxes, city taxes, and anyway, all of our taxes here in Oregon. And they should be helping out the communities with those types of things. Infrastructure. Let's build another freeway in Oregon, that could actually help traffic and not go into doing toll roads. Let's build a real freeway.
And they don't want that, Sonny, because they want to make you go and ride a bus that's full of fentanyl and crack smoke. Right. That's what you have to do. That's how you're getting to work. It's going to take you 2 hours instead of 20 minutes, but you're going to get a good whiff of fentanyl smoke. How's that sound?
Yeah. That's not the future that I want. It's there's so much. There's
a lot there. I know. Well, yeah. So we are supposed to get some money back. In fact, something called the kicker. It's a unique thing here in Oregon when when significantly more money comes in than they originally estimated, and therefore they don't. In order to prevent them from going and just spending it all, it gets returned to the people. This is something that was put in the Constitution back in, I think, the 90s. And this one would return a record amount of revenue back to people based on their income. It says that 45% of what you paid in 2022 income taxes to the state could actually end up being refunded to you. And there's a good chart here. I'll just post it in the feed, which shows what it should be by income. There's a big problem with this. The Democrats who've already stolen the kicker that would go back to corporations, they've pretty much stolen all of that as far as I understand. They want to take this too, because
of course they do. We were supposed to have a kicker. I thought that we were supposed to have a kicker the last couple of years. We haven't got Jack. Kevin?
I know. This is real money, by the way. Sorry again? Can you say that again?
It's pie in the sky dream of getting a kicker back. I don't
know. Well, and it shouldn't be, because it should be the Constitution.
Should be. It should
Well,
be.
this is real money, by the way. So
Yeah.
if you're making, I think the median income in Oregon is somewhere around the 52,000 to 60,000 range. Your kicker could be $3,800. Now, there's a lot of people, and we were just talking about this, that are finding it hard to keep up with the bills, keep up with the higher taxes, keep up with the inflation that's driven up the cost of living of everything. $3,800 could really go a long way to alleviating the economic pressure that people in Oregon feel under. And that's just median income people. So that's
Yeah.
just in the middle. The
Yeah. That's
Democrats,
some real money
it's real money.
that could help people. It really is. And yeah, I know it's calculated in tax filings, but that's that's a lot of money. That's, I don't know how, but you could equate that out to 6 months worth of childcare for somebody, help
Easily.
a family out, right? I mean, that's a
Or,
lot.
or tutoring for your kids that are still a year and a half to 2 years behind where they should be because
Yeah.
of schools being shut down during the pandemic. I mean, there's a lot of needs that exist. Maybe somebody needs a new car because the old one is beyond the repair stage. $3,800 will give you a nice little chunk of money to be able to go out and afford to maybe borrow money at the higher interest rates, by the way, driven up by Bidenflation in a
Oh, yeah. Oh,
state where
those wonderful Bidenomics.
Bidenomics. That's right. One day people are gonna. They're literally. That's going to be the sole punchline to a whole series of jokes. There'll probably be one of those books, where they just have jokes of this like Biden jokes, and it's be like,
Yeah.
Bidenomics is the punchline because unfortunately it's the punchline that feels like it's punched us all in the face, and he thinks
Yeah.
it's actually good. That's crazy. Well, there is somebody who is fighting back against taxation. In Salem, they're referring a tax increase, an income tax increase of, I think it's 1%. It's a significant amount to the ballot. And so they've gotten signatures. They referred it to the ballot. It was passed by the city council. Interestingly enough, though, a whole bunch of state workers who work in Salem don't live in Salem. And there might be actually the joke made in this article at the beginning is you might see a bunch of state government workers pouring tea into the river here in Salem, which is where I am today, because when you go and take 1% of their income, they're not really that thrilled with it, and they don't get to vote on the repeal because they don't live here.
Right. Right.
It's
Yeah.
classic
Well.
taxation without representation, which we're well familiar with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What else have you got, Kevin?
So, we've spent a lot of time hearing about how much money is being spent. One of the things Democrats are spending loads of money on, and I think you guys talked about some of this on Wednesday, didn't you? Is the climate change stuff, and the scientists who came out and kind of blew a big hole in
Yes.
the emergency. But Democrats need emergencies so they can go and do things like spend hundreds of billions of dollars and probably not change the world's temperature at all. But Jeff Merkley is out bragging about what he calls the 21st Century Energy Act. So they can create a bunch of clean energy jobs. How long have we been hearing about clean energy jobs?
I think that's just that's a misnomer, quite frankly. I think clean energy jobs is fake news.
Well, and here's how we can prove it, because literally the same day I see this headline and Jeff Merkley bragging that he's brought home the clean bacon, whatever that might be. The Oregon Department of Environmental Quality has selected a nonprofit to distribute millions of climate investment program dollars here in the state. But when you read the details here, it says that the name of the group is called Seeding Justice, which I'm like, I thought they were talking about climate and green energy. Seeding Justice estimates a state program for offsetting carbon could generate $150 million each year in climate action across Oregon. which is about the same as I'm going to take money and I'm just going to flush it down a giant toilet and just watch it go into the sewage system, because Seeding Justice is a nonprofit, Portland based, that deals in social, racial, and environmental justice. So apparently the climate is racist, and therefore the way to solve it is by spending a bunch of money on equitable climate spending, which I don't even think that unequitable climate spending really has much of an effect. But equitable climate spending's got to be at least that much more wasteful and stupid. But they say they're going to reduce statewide fossil fuel emissions by 50% by 2035 and 90% by 2050. We just heard from those scientists that actually might be the most gargantuan waste of money you could possibly have and have no effect
Well,
on the
you
planet.
have to speak the truth on this, Kevin. This is nation enriching. This is a big shell game of taking one state's or one nation's money and handing it to another. You know, the solar panels, all the rare earth minerals that it takes to make them, or wind turbines, it all comes out of China. This is a nation enriching. This is an absolute scam. Yes, changes it's been doing for forever. And the weather cycles, we're right now in summer, just ending summer, going to be coming into fall. So it's going to start getting a little cooler. There's an article I read yesterday that I didn't post into for our captive audience. And it had to do with about how this green energy is not green.
Oh, yeah.
And I live in Northeast Oregon, Umatilla County, and we have lots of wind turbines here. And but they're changing out wind turbines from one size to much bigger. They have to take the entire thing down, chop it up. All the blades are cut into pieces so they'll fit on a semi, and they're storing them over in Walla Walla as a staging area. And the article that I read showed a little tiny tractor. It was an aerial picture. And it showed a little tiny yellow tractor. Well, you know what? The thing's like I don't know, a D9 or something. It's huge, humongous. An earth mover burying these wind turbine blades. And where are they doing that? In Wyoming. Because they are not recyclable. And just today, as I was coming to our office where I am right now, there went a semi headed south, headed probably to Wyoming. You know, I don't know, but I would guess. And it's just such a shame. I mean, I'm seeing it right where I'm at, and yet we are not producing more actual energy in Oregon at all. And this whole this climate, we just have to speak it, what the truth about what it is, and it's just a damn shell game that is doing nothing but it might make some people feel good. Oh, good, you know, it's green energy, but there's nothing green about it. I heard today
Just the
about
money that you have to spend to pay for it, maybe. That's
yes,
about
and then you know, with the hurricane that hit Florida too, I heard it all this morning as two electric vehicles burst into flames when the salt water of the ocean rising, you know, hit them. Gasoline engine and diesel engines, they don't burst into flames, but the electric vehicles do. And you can't put these things out. It takes tens of thousands of gallons of water to extinguish one of these. And okay, I'm off of my soapbox.
Oh, well, that's a good soapbox, because, you know, it also reminds me a little bit with this wind turbine blade unrecyclable stuff where they're taking one set down and putting a new set up, and they're very expensive, heavily subsidized, right?
Yes.
It reminds me of the old story about how the socialists figured out how to create jobs. They pay 10 people to go dig holes, and then they pay 10 other people to go and fill the holes up. 20 jobs, and no attention to whether it's productive or efficient. But I would say that perhaps it's even worse than just inefficient and ineffective. It could actually be dangerous because what we're facing is a less reliable electrical grid.
Yes.
As we get off of reliable
A
forms of
hundred
energy,
percent.
unreliable electricity can be deadly and actually cause many people to be unable to, the economy not to function, critical services not to function. People can freeze to death. They can be unable to communicate. There's all kinds of things, ramifications from this. And they don't seem to care because it's like a religion that has this frenetic emergency, where I joked with David the other day that they've predicted 10 out of the last 0 climate apocalypses. Every
Right.
few years, they come up with another thing that's going to happen in 5 years, a polar ice cap melting, the earth being destroyed,
Oh,
everything, the
yeah.
oceans boiling, all this garbage. It doesn't happen.
No, it hasn't happened yet. And, I've been hearing about this for, I don't know, 40, 50 years. Okay, I'm giving my age away. I'm over that. But, it's a long time. And yet here we had, Greta, what's her name, said, oh my gosh, the world's going to come to an end in 10 years.
Oh,
Well,
she said 5, and she posted it in 2018, and guess what just happened?
come and gone,
5 years passed.
come and gone. And,
Come and
and so, but the shame
tweet
of it is,
deleted, by the way.
the shame of it is they are indoctrinating the children in school to be fearful about this. So
Yeah.
much so that children are having anxiety attacks, thinking that the world as they know it is going to be coming to an end. That is fear mongering, and that is a crime against these young minds that don't know anything. We as adults can discern the truth, but when they're in school being taught something, they're thinking everything that they're hearing is true and correct. And that's a whole nother.
No, that's right. And it's unchallenged information,
Yeah.
pronouncements, scientific pronouncements by politicians and bureaucrats, which is not science, that is being used to create what has been correctly pointed out is a grossly exaggerated hyperbole of an emergency that
Yeah.
is not an emergency. And it's
Yes.
causing people to make bad decisions, money to be wasted. And as you said, it's traumatizing people who don't understand and aren't equipped to think and push back critically on these things. It does, and it will have a cost. It's used with almost everything in our society. We saw what it did during COVID. We
Yeah.
know that it's being used to the climate change policies. And maybe this is a good thing to end on here, is that it's being used to tell people that they're not allowed to have a firearm to defend themselves and will have no access to it. So Measure 114, as we know, was designed to turn the Constitution upside down and make you go to the government for a permission slip to own a firearm, to purchase a firearm.
Yeah.
And also that you'll need permission and to even own things like a magazine with more than 10 bullets in it, or a magazine capable of firing something with more than 10 bullets. And as a result, this is going to trial on September 18th in Harney County. And everybody's going to have to watch this because the FBI has said they will not do the fingerprint background checks for the state of Oregon. If they can't do the fingerprint background checks, the sheriffs have received guidance to say, don't issue any permits to purchase firearms. So you won't be able to. The minute that happens, all the firearms dealers in the state will disappear because they won't have anybody to sell to for an indefinite period of time. And people will die. And a lot more people will die because they're in the middle of a crime wave where you cannot defend yourself if you cannot legally obtain a firearm in many places. And that court decision that from that trial that will be heard on the 18th will determine whether or not we're facing this or not, or if it'll go to the Court of Appeals. And I noticed the same day I was seeing these stories about this. And by the way, there is a federal court case too that's being appealed, so we have to hope that that goes somewhere.
Yeah.
But there's the Secretary of State put out a report saying that that awareness is needed on Oregon's red flag gun laws. Do you remember when the person in Bend went and shot up a supermarket, and we learned later about this person, all this stuff, like everybody knew he was nuts. Everybody knew he had guns, all this stuff. And they're like, this is what they invented the red flag laws. Nobody did anything with it. We said that the red flag laws would be ineffective, and they would be more likely to cause somebody who should not have their firearms removed from them, have them removed, and
Yeah.
would not help keep people from committing suicide. It would not stop people like that guy that shut up the supermarket in Bend. Here we are. Apparently, it's a lack of awareness. You know what they need to solve this lack of awareness? More money. They pass more gun laws, and it just seems to make things worse.
Right. It does. It does. And it infringes on our Second Amendment right, which says shall not be infringed.
Shall not be infringed.
So I'll tell you, there is a lot riding on this court case on the 18th. And as I was reading something that with that sheriff's, what's coming out of the sheriff's office, or not sheriff's office, but their law advisors, I'll say, to the sheriffs.
The briefing they sent out, yeah.
Yeah, that, you know, it's not that, well, I have a firearm that is a larger capacity, so I'm grandfathered in. You're not.
Yeah.
Or I've got one that's 10 round max, and I had it before the law. I'm grandfathered in. You're not. Apparently, it could be construed that because the bottom plate, the base plate of the magazine can be removed. That's so you can put another spring in it. That's so you can clean it when you drop it in the dirt. You know, I have shot competitively. I've not done it in a little while, but I'll say I used to shoot. And you know what? You just drop your magazines in the dirt and put another one in and keep shooting. So you have to clean those things. But they're saying that with it detachable, that could be an issue. Well, maybe you could put more in there. And so that's splitting some hairs. But you know what? Do you want to go to jail, or do you want to get arrested, or do you want to be the test case here in Oregon? No.
Well, and I think what you're pointing to is a situation where if you're arrested and these things are seized from you, that in theory, if you can prove that you owned it before the law took effect, that you could avoid prosecution. However, it's actually almost impossible to prove this, and it turns the law upside down. We always think innocent until proven guilty, but this puts it on you. You're guilty until proven innocent. So this means that you're going to have to prove to someone and that you owned that beyond, I guess, a reasonable doubt. I don't know what the proof level is, to keep from being prosecuted for simply owning something you own today. A law change suddenly made you a criminal. And that's not how our justice system should operate. And that's not what under our Constitution, as you said, shall not be infringed, should allow. So,
but you know, it's not just, it goes a little further, Kevin. You don't even have to be arrested. Let's say you get pulled over and you have a concealed carry, but you happen to get a cop that has a bad attitude. You don't know what he's just come from, right? But he doesn't, and somehow your interaction goes bad, and you go, well, I've got a concealed carry, and yes, I've got my gun with me. Well, let me take a look at it. And he decides, you know what? Sorry, this is illegal. So you don't have to be arrested for this stuff to happen. You can just be pulled over.
Yeah.
And be a law-abiding citizen. So Pat says manufacture date. Well, you know what? Magazines don't have serial numbers on them.
That's right.
They don't have something there that is, they have a manufacturer stamp. So you know if it is, who it's manufactured by. And other than that, That's it. Yes, I guess you could engrave something on there, but it's not proof, right? So the bottom line is this is an awful situation that that Oregonians are facing with this lawsuit that has to be challenged, that's got to be overturned and challenged by. It's going to end up in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, I believe, and who knows, it might end up at the Supreme Court.
It could, because they do have a provision for reasonable restrictions, regulations on the possession and sale of firearms, and certainly their use. But these sound unreasonable to me, ones that actually impinge entirely on your right to keep and bear arms. And it should be a clear-cut case, I think, at some point. And so we got to keep the fight on. We got to keep letting people know what's happening, because this is easy. One day you turn around and like, what? No, why are you arresting me, officer? And
exactly,
we're going to make sure you know what's happening, and we take action, and we make our elected officials aware of this. That Measure 114 passed by just a razor thin margin. I think what was it, about 50,000 votes out of like 3 million or something, or more than that. And so clearly this is a situation where we might be able to turn the tide and get things back on track, either through the judicial system or at the ballot box.
I'll tell you, I sure hope so. I sure hope so. Kevin, thank you so much for coming in and filling in for David today. It's First Friday and David's off, and I just so much appreciate it. We don't get to be together very often, and so it's a treat when we are.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on, Suni.
You bet. Thank you. And hey, everybody, have a great weekend, a 3-day weekend, and enjoy yourselves.
Enjoy your families as well.
Yes. Hug them tight and tell them you love them awfully.
Take care.
Night.